For years, I have been wanting to play a sorcerer outside of a one-shot, and my friend Joshua has been discouraging me, telling me that they are ass. I didn't really believe him until I played one in my friend Ethan's campaign, wherein I had to heavily supplement my character with homebrew in order for her to be able to function on the same tier as the paladin and druid tier classes in my group. I really enjoy the idea of the sorcerer, though, specifically the idea of metamagic, so I want to create one for an upcoming campaign. But I refuse to play rules as written sorcerer because it's awful. Here are my main problems with the sorcerer. 1. More than half of the metamagic sucks ass, so every sorcerer takes Twinned, Subtle, and Quickened spell if they don't want to waste their main feature's usefulness. Also, your main feature can be taken as a feat by anyone, which kind of is just cringe. 2. You can only use one metamagic per spell for some reason. Honestly, I don't understand why this is. Half the options suck anyways on their own, so using multiple at once shouldn't be an issue. 3 is that sorcerers learn 15 spells maximum and, barring specific subclasses, learn none from their subclass. This is stupid. Metamagic, especially when most of the options are horrible, and the ability to use metamagic can be put on the wizard instead for the cost of one feat, is not worth losing out on 29 spells compared to wizards who learn a minimum of 44. Like, what? Warlocks learn the same amount of spells, despite all of their invocations that give them at-will spells and extra spells and fancy stuff that they can do, and buffs to Eldritch Blast, and random effects like Beast Speech, where you could just talk to animals. And even bards learn more spells than a sorcerer by a margin of 7. 4. I don't like sorcerer being a charisma caster. Warlocks make a pact, bards make music, so they make sense for charisma to me. But a sorcerer uses charisma because, why? They don't persuade, deceive, or intimidate the universe into giving them magic. They don't perform art to get the magic either. So, it's just silly to me that they use charisma, something that is just the measure of someone's ability to talk to people and riz people up, as it were, to cast spells. So, these are the changes that I made to the class to make it more cohesive and fun for me. 1. I changed the spellcasting statistic of Sorcerer. What I changed it to may surprise you. I actually changed the spellcasting statistic of Sorcerer to be Constitution. You could make the argument, though, that Constitution shouldn't be a caster's main statistic because it makes it too efficient to scale offense and defense with one funny number. However, I disagree for one very good reason. Dexterity characters do this exact thing. They scale their damage with their AC simultaneously off of the same statistic, and they scale their skills as well. Nobody cares about that, and I grant you that AC isn't the same kind of defense as HP. However, I just think that using Constitution is way cooler and way more fun than using a mental stat. I view sorcerers as people who channel like primal natural magic through their body as a conduit, and bend the world to their will with their mind without studying. I think of the scene specifically where Uncle Iroh is teaching Zuko how to channel lightning whenever I think of a sorcerer. A sorcerer literally channeling the actual magic through their actual body, like a firebender channels lightning through their body. And it could be potentially harmful to them without having high constitution. So, I made the change to Constitution, and I think it's a good change. This change also synergizes with later changes I made to the class in a way that I find is cohesive. 2. I modified Font of Magic because as written, it didn't have enough stuff. I added the ability Channel, named after the Magic the Gathering card of the same name. Channel allows you to, as an action, convert health points, hit points, into sorcery points at a rate of 2 HP to 1 SP. And it also lowers your hit point maximum by the amount you pay until your next long rest. This should synergize with sorcerers being a constitution caster because it should reward you, obviously, for having high constitution. And it should also give you cool moments where you burn your HP to make sorcery points in order to make spell slots or perform meta magic, potentially turning the tide of battle as you burn up your body for a purpose. 3 is I added the ability to use multiple meta magics on one spell, with the limit that you have to burn your HP to do so. I have an equation in my PDF that details how to calculate the HP loss of using multiple meta magics on one spell. I also modified most of the meta magics to be viable options, besides just it being the big three, right? I also nerfed the big three a little bit because they were overpowered. Yeah. Now most of the options are equally viable, though Distant Spell is probably still the weakest on its own, because increasing a spell's range is not a very powerful effect, no matter how you cut it or how... you would have to make it free to make it like on the level of the other ones, in my opinion, and that just wouldn't be fair, because then you would always use it and always be firing things at double range, and that would be effectively getting a feat for free. Kind of unfair. 4 is that now your spells known equals your sorcerer level, and your cantrips scale from 5 at level 1 to 8 at level 20. 5 is that now nearly every subclass gives you spells like Clockwork Soul does. I rewrote every single subclass to some extent, except I believe the Lunar Sorcerer, because it was fine as is. The only published subclass I didn't touch was Wild Magic, and that's because it is my nemesis, and I think it is lame. Nobody can convince me that it is fun to accidentally fireball yourself or something stupid like that because you cast a spell. Random does not equal funny to me. I like the theme of Wild Magic, I just don't think the Surge Table is salvageable, and I did not have the energy to rewrite that mess of a subclass. But 6, I did write my own subclass, because I was feeling passionate about Sorcerer having more options. The subclass I wrote is like Divine Soul, but instead it gives you access to the Druid and Ranger lists, because I figured it would be exciting to have access to those spells via a subclass. It's called Beastcaller Sorcery, and I think I did a pretty good job with the idea. The subclass features buff your summon spells. That's the whole class. Your first feature is called Beastcaller Savant. The feature gives you your subclass spells in the form of access to the Druid and Ranger spell lists to learn from. Your next feature, also gained at level 1, is Voice of Gaia. Starting at first level, you are always under the effects of the Speak with Animals spell. Additionally, whenever you make a charisma check when interacting with beasts, your proficiency bonus is doubled if it applies to the check. Your 6th level feature is Menagerie. Starting at level 6, whenever you cast a spell that would summon one or more creatures, you may summon that many creatures plus one additional creature. The additional creature is identical to one of the creatures summoned by the spell and functions in the manner the spell that summoned it dictates. At 14th level, you get the feature Resummon. Starting at 14th level, your summoned creatures can be resummoned on the fly. As a bonus action on your turn, you can choose any number of other creatures you can see that you have summoned. They each teleport up to 30 feet to an unoccupied space you can see. Once you use this bonus action, you can't use it again until you finish a long rest, unless you spend 5 sorcery points to use it again. At 18th level, you get Healing Wave. You gain the ability to restore creatures you have summoned with your willpower. As an action, you can send out a Healing Wave in a 60-foot diameter sphere originating from you. The Healing Wave restores allied summoned creatures to full hit points. Once you use this action, you can't use it again until you finish a long rest, unless you spend 7 sorcery points to use it again. All in all, I think this subclass idea is a pretty fun one. I haven't been able to fully playtest it yet, though, so I may release another version of Revised Sorcerer in the future based on what people think of Beastcaller. You can find a link to Revised Sorcerer in the description of this video, so please check it out. Wah.